Okay, we're good, Matt.
Okay, morning everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
We will have our meeting get underway with an invocation by Commissioner Hinkleman and then a pledge by Deputy Clerk Mensinger. John?
Very good. Thank you, Mac. Would you please bow with me in prayer? Father God, we come to you today with humble hearts. Thank you for the blessings that you have poured down upon us, the air that we breathe and the hearts that be within our chests. And we are truly thankful for all the undeserved blessings that you provide. And we know, Father, because of Scripture, you want us to come to you in prayer when we have needs. We have needs, Father God. We are in the middle of a pandemic for which we don't yet have answers.
Jesus.
We find ourselves as a nation divided by an election and by political differences. And Father God, we know you have for us a perfect plan and a perfect timeline for that plan to occur. Please help us reinforce the character traits that we need, like tolerance and understanding and unity, and loyalty, and compassion, and vigilance. Help us to come together as individuals, as a county, and as a nation to move forward as you would have us move forward, Lord. Help us to see and fulfill your plan for us. Help us to make positive steps forward and end divisiveness. We ask all this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
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 Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chickering.
Here.
And state where you're at.
St. Joseph, Michigan on Zoom.
Curran.
I am present on Zoom from Niles Township, Michigan.
Yay, you're back.
Freeling.
Present on Zoom in Baroda, Michigan.
Harrison.
I'm present on Zoom from Lincoln Township.
Hugo.
I'm present on Zoom from South Bend.
Hinkleman.
Here from Bainbridge Township.
Majerick.
On Zoom from Niles, Michigan.
Meeks.
On Zoom in Ben Charter Township.
Scott.
Here on Zoom from the Buffalo Township Gateway to Michigan.
Lowrat.
I'm here in Coloma, home of the Comets.
Yarborough.
I'm in Benton Harbor, Michigan, home of the Tigers. On Zoom.
Elliott.
I'm here in the boardroom, not on Zoom. At least, well, maybe I am in a way, but I'm here. We have minutes from 2 weeks ago that were sent out a while ago. Hadn't heard from anyone about changes. Assuming there are no changes, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the October 22nd meeting?
Michael Majerick, I'll approve those minutes.
Moved by Majerick, is there support?
Walrath, support.
Supported by Bullrath. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chickering. Chickering.
Yes.
Curran.
Yes.
Freeling.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hugo.
Yes.
Hinkleman.
Yes.
Majerick.
Yes.
Meeks.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Lowrat.
Yes.
Yarborough.
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes.
We have 12 ayes, motion carried.
Any communications?
Yes. There were 2 form letters by email from the address advocacy@bluestatedigital.com with a name, no address. regarding Michiganians deserve a fair election in November and beyond, received October 24th and 28th, 2020. Alcona County Board of Commissioners sent a resolution declaring Alcona County a constitutional Second Amendment sanctuary county, received October 26, 2020. That's it.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the list is an update from the health officer, Nikki Britton. Morning, Nikki.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. So I'm going to go through, give you a little bit more of an update, continue to keep you informed as to what's going on with our COVID-19 trends. Most of these graphs will look familiar. You've seen versions of them for weeks, months now, but they are looking a little different and taking a little different shape. So this is a graph that shows all of the confirmed cases in Berrien County over the course of the pandemic. And we've been on this increase here basically since the beginning of October. And in reality, it's not really showing signs of slowing down at this point. There's always a little bit of this downward tail at the end, usually because it takes a few days before the cases all get put to the right date. So what you can see is we're averaging close to 57, 58 cases per day as a 7-day rolling average. And this has been doing nothing but increasing for the last 5 weeks now. So with that, we're continuing to adjust how we do case investigation and contact tracing with this really unprecedented volume to make sure that we're continuing to provide that service in ways that continue to be meaningful when there are this high levels, this much transmission happening in the community. But as I always say, the number of confirmed cases excuse me, is not the only piece of information that we should be looking at. There's many pieces of information we need to have a more complete picture. So with percent positivity, again, we did see an increase throughout the month of October. That makes sense with having such an increase in our number of cases. It does look like we're seeing a little bit of leveling off of percent positivity where it might be flattening instead of continuing to increase, but we're right around 8% of tests that are done in Berrien County are coming back with a positive result. This trend is becoming more difficult to really make meaningful comparisons over time with, because we are having a number of new sources of testing that not all of the negative results are being reported into the system. And there's a wide variety of reasons why this is. Many of them are well beyond our control, but there are many employers that are using rapid antigen tests. We get notified of positive results. We don't get notified of negatives. Same can be true across state lines. We don't always get negatives. So when we're not getting the negatives, it becomes more difficult to have an accurate percentage of what's positive. So we're going to continue to monitor, but that is an important context we need to know. Regardless, the data is still reflecting real increases in number of cases that are out there. Our increases in cases is not due to excess testing. There actually is more disease transmission. This is a graph that I have not shown this group before. It's a different way of looking at information, but it helps show the age trends amongst COVID-19 cases over time. So again, this is looking at pretty much from middle of March until now. Each bar represents a different week in the pandemic, and each bar represents 100% of the cases. And then it gives the percent breakdown by these age categories. So you can see how the percentage of cases within each age category has fluctuated over time. So these light blue ones, for example, are 0 to 18 years of age. There really weren't any cases in this age group until several weeks into the pandemic. And a lot of that was because testing was heavily restricted towards people with severe illness. We don't see that in those under the age of 18 typically. There's a couple of spikes here that can be attributed to some specific outbreaks that we know happened. Notably, since the school year started right around this time period, we have not seen any sort of significant uptick in the number of cases amongst 0 to 18-year-olds. That's a really encouraging positive sign. We have seen the expansion of this 19 to 49 age category, showing that younger adults are making an increasing proportion of our cases compared to earlier in the pandemic. 50 to 59 years are the purple bar, and 60 to 69 are the green bars. Those are also somewhat increasing, and that is a group that could be at risk of severe illness, but also may not, depending on some of the underlying conditions. They're sort of in that middle area of increasing risk. And then the yellow is 70 plus, and those are definitely our most vulnerable, people that we're most concerned about having severest complications, including potentially deaths. So you'll see recently we have seen a bit of an uptick in our 70 plus population. This is associated with some outbreaks in some nursing homes that we are aware of. We're working with facilities to have some containment, but just to show you how the age distribution is changing over time. This is our graph with hospitalizations, and showing that historically it's the average number of people in the hospital on any given day with a positive COVID result. I'll draw your attention to the red circle here. This is pointing out, we know we had some errors and how the data was pulling when we were getting that information pulled automatically from the hospital into our dashboard. There were some coding errors that I may have mentioned here before. So there were some hospitalizations that we know were counted twice during this time frame. We have not been able to correct all of the historical data yet, so this area is not perfectly accurate, but over the last few weeks, this has been resolved, and we do know that this is where we truly stand on the graph right now. So there has been an average of between 25 to 30 people who are in the hospital with a positive COVID result. We do know that there is a proportion of people who have a positive test result, but are in the hospital for other medical needs, not being treated for their COVID symptoms. But there absolutely has been an increase in the number of people receiving hospital level care for COVID-19. It's the way the data is collected, it is difficult to tease out and quantify how much the hospitalizations due to COVID symptoms have increased compared to our number of cases, but we do know we're seeing real increases there. And then the last slide is looking at death data. We are seeing a little bit of an increase in our deaths, and this is an unfortunate result, as we tend to see the increases in the older adult population, those over 70, having more disease burden and having the outbreaks in long-term care facilities. We have seen a few deaths associated with those outbreaks, and that does explain some of these increases here in deaths. So that is really where we stand as a community. To really summarize those trends, we're continuing to see increases. We're seeing increases in the areas that we or in the numbers in a way that is predicting if we continue on that trajectory for many more weeks, we could absolutely run into capacity issues at the hospital. Right now, there are not capacity issues at the hospital, but we know that once we start to reach capacity issues, that is very hard to adjust and prevent new hospitalizations and new infections and have an impact at that time. Generally, somebody becomes infected or exposed to a confirmed case at least 2 weeks before they might be hospitalized. So what happens over the next 2 weeks in our hospital system, that's already sort of been determined by what has happened in interactions out in the community. Projections are showing over the next few weeks, like I said, are still good, but we do need to be mindful of trying to be somewhat proactive and preventive of not getting to that capacity instead of trying to react when we do hit some capacity. There's lots of collaboration between the health department and Spectrum Health Lakeland to ensure that we all understand what is going on and how we're all able to care for some of these things, and really understanding the complexity of the data. But with the trends we're seeing, I do want to urge our public and all of our residents to really just continue to remain vigilant with the preventive measures we've been talking about for the last 8 months. I know it's difficult. I know it's wearisome. We do want things to be different, but wearing masks, washing your hands, watching your distance with other people, those 3 W's are really important, and trying to minimize the amount of people that you have close contact with. Those continue to be the absolute best practices to try to reduce and slow some of the transmission in our community so that our hospitals don't reach capacity, so that our community transmission doesn't reach such high levels that schools feel like they cannot offer in-person instruction anymore. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Commissioner, or, Director Britton, this is Commissioner Harrison. So when you look at the events and the build of the number of cases, what would you point to as the most likely culprit or reason for it, knowing that we've seen a big jump in cases?
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard to pinpoint to any one specific thing. And when we have the number of cases that we do have, it's not like we have one outbreak, one cluster, one thing driving this. What we are finding is that really gatherings and groups of people coming together, often in informal social gatherings, family gatherings, parties, or with other types of social events, those seem to be a lot of the drivers of how COVID is spreading between households. And then we are also finding that once somebody in a household is positive, there is a very, very high likelihood that their household contacts will also become infected. Some of that is the reality of people's home situations. They don't have the ability to actually isolate within their homes, or they need to continue to take care of young children, so you can't meaningfully isolate. But it's moving between households with these social gatherings, and maybe it's going to grandma's house or going to your aunt's house. Maybe it's having friends over for a dinner party or having some event for a social club or something we're part of. But as people are just mixing with one another and having less diligence with wearing masks, maintaining a social distance, and good hand hygiene, all of those things seem to be playing in. There's no one geography. There's not really one thing that is driving that transmission.
With this, Commissioner Harrison again, with Thanksgiving coming forward, do you have any specific recommendations of what families should do to maintain contact and some type of semblance of relationships with their families?
Yeah, and this is going to be tricky, and I think that's a really great question and an important thing for people to understand, because what we want to avoid is the second week of December having this huge glut of cases based on our Thanksgiving week activities. So we do really recommend individuals try to think through what could Thanksgiving look like in our family if we maintained social distance, if we had smaller groups. Maybe not everybody converges at one relative's family, but maybe things happen in smaller groups. When with family indoors, it feels really awkward, I understand, but maybe continue to wear your mask in somebody else's house. I think a lot of times when people go to each other's homes or have company to their own home, it feels weird to continue wearing a mask. It is something that can help reduce that risk, and trying to find ways to have people continue to space out to the extent possible is really important. There are creative ways that I know people celebrated Easter with their family, celebrated Mother's Day, Father's Day, a lot of these sorts of things. It does become more challenging with the colder weather, but really trying to find ways to continue wearing a mask, keeping your distance, and washing hands.
If we continue along the same trajectory with cases, do you see the health department at the state level doing any more rigorous enforcement and lockdown or controlling where people might congregate?
So I don't I don't have any insider knowledge, but it does seem very reasonable based on what we've already seen that yes, the epidemic orders that are in place could become more restrictive, and the public health code does allow for that if it's for the containment of an epidemic. So that is absolutely possible, and why I feel if we can really double down and be vigilant with the measures that are currently in the epidemic order, we may not need anything more restrictive.
Thank you.
Nikki, I did take note on the 3 W's, but I forgot the third W. Wearing mask, washing hands, and I just can't remember it.
Watch your distance.
Watch your distance.
A little bit of a stretch to make them all 3 W's.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Brian, did you have anything?
No, sir.
Nikki, do you want to comment briefly on this order that went into effect Monday for the restaurants, the sign-in and whatnot?
Yeah, so part of the latest epidemic order does require restaurants to collect name and information, phone number for individuals in the restaurant. I believe the intent here is that if there was somebody who was in a restaurant during their infectious period, that they would have a record of who else may have been around that infectious individual to aid in a contact tracing effort. So the spirit behind that is good. I think there, as with almost all things, there is a lot of variability in terms of how businesses, restaurants specifically, are able to comply with that, and a little bit of variability in how meaningful that information is if there's not also an understanding of where that person was in the restaurant. So if it ends up being just a list of names and phone numbers as opposed to a assignment to a table or a rough time that somebody was in the restaurant, there is a little bit more limited utility to that information should we need that. That need does not arise super frequently, at least in our case investigations. I do appreciate definitely all the businesses that are doing what they can to follow the epidemic orders, even when it doesn't always seem clear as to why they've been asked to do that. But definitely appreciate all of the efforts that our local businesses are putting in to comply.
Okay, very good. Anything else? All right, thank you, Nikki.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now have the public hearing for the budget for the next calendar year. So we'll need to do a motion to, technically not adjourning, to put our regular meeting on pause and then convene the public hearing for the 2021 budget. Is there a motion to that effect?
Commissioner makes make that motion.
Oh, go ahead, Don.
I just wanted to make that motion.
Okay, and supported by Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Curran,
Yes.
Freeland,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Hugel,
Yes.
Hinkleman,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Meeks,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Volrath,
Yes.
Yarborough,
Yes, did you say Yarborough? I didn't hear you, Mike.
Chickering,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes.
Have 12 yeas, motion carried.
Okay, we are in the public hearing. I'll turn it over to the administrator.
Yeah, so members of the board, this is a somewhat difficult budget to put together because of the uncertainty of the county, of the community, of the state, and of the country right now. There is no good playbook for your staff to put together a budget document that they can say to you won't have multiple amendments. The playbook that we opted to use was to try to go as conservative as possible. The 21 fiscal year budget is going to look very similar to the 2019 fiscal year budget. We've tried to rein in spending to the very best of our abilities. Myself and the team of Doug and Ben hosted the better part of a dozen meetings with the various departments over the course of multiple months. We worked collaboratively with the departments to eliminate positions that had essentially been dated. We were carrying funding for the positions, but they had not been filled either due to decisions by the departments or just inability to find quality candidates. As we went through the budget process, we then worked with individual departments to have serious conversations about capital improvements, about when these improvements should occur. And we did our very best to balance the needs of the county's departments, as well as recognizing that we do have some uncertainty as it relates to the upcoming year and just not knowing what the impacts of COVID-19 will be on the county and on the local economy. Now, with that said, we did our very best to collaborate. Just prior to the start of this meeting, myself and Doug were on a phone call with one of the commission members about areas of concern, and it was brought up that we do have an ongoing question as it relates to Act 51 funding and whether or not those dollars can be used the way that we've laid out in the current fiscal year budget. The position that I've taken is we've pulled in Judge Dwayne and just asked him to provide some guidance on how Act 51 dollars can be used. And if for some reason we find that we're not using those properly, we'll work with the road department then to amend the budget to push dollars back into those funds. Now, with that said, despite this looking like a 2019 fiscal year budget, we are still being aggressive about the rollout of capital improvements. We're being aggressive about funding all of our departments and being aggressive about continuing to provide public service. So that's a brief introduction to what you're going to see. Doug and Ben are here from our financial team to walk you through the budget document. Aside from a public hearing, no further action is needed by the Board of Commissioners today. Doug, are you ready?
Yep. Doug, before you go.
Yes.
Give them a view, an aerial view.
Mm-hmm.
Trust they can read it in due course. So just give that overview.
Okay, very good.
Thanks.
Will do. Good morning.
Good morning.
The pictures you saw previously on the cover, this year has felt like the middle two pictures on that. It's been kind of one of those years. We were hoping to end the year with the bottom picture. However, it doesn't appear after hearing Nikki this morning that might not be the case. Anyway, these were taken by some of our some local folks. The 2021 budget, this slide provides you with just a high-level view of things. And basically, my comments are going to be related to primary government, all right? Which that would not include the different authorities, would not include Riverwood or some, like that. So the 2021 budget for primary government that we're presenting to you, we're asking for your review and adoption of revenues of $165.392 million, expenditures of $175.563 million, and a use of fund balance or net position of $10,171,000. Go to the next, please. This is another, just a little different way of looking at it. You can look across the different expenditure classifications. What you see here is the general fund is budgeted for a use of fund balance of $546,000, and we'll talk about that in a little bit again. The special revenue funds are budgeted for a use of fund balance of $6.2 million. $4 million almost $4.1 million of that is at the road department, with the efforts that they are making to improve our roads. Other departments or other funds come in for about 2.1 million. Capital projects are a use of funds of $1,450,000, and internal services funds are going down a little bit as well. With that, we'll just kind of walk. Yes.
Excuse me. Can you point to where you are, or is there any way we can know what you're saying these numbers, but I don't see them. I don't know where they are.
Bottom of the screen.
On this page, I'm saying, you're saying gonna use something. And you know, we see these a lot, but I just don't know where to even start being in line with where you are.
How about here? Does that show?
It shows on the screen here.
I'm looking at the screen.
Are you seeing?
Do you see the pointer?
I'm seeing revenues and general fund, all these special revenue funds. Just kind of start me where you are.
Mamie, I believe it's page 5 of your book.
Okay.
And by the way, on the screen sharing, it does not show anything below the numbers where it says all the actual words, a decrease in fund balance, all of that paragraph or a couple of bullet points, and that is not showing on our screen.
Okay.
They are not on your screen?
I'll get to look at it later. I won't bother you anymore.
He's talking about everything would be down here from the book.
Oh, okay. On the screen now, you should not see anything below the net increase, decrease in fund balance or balanced net position. There is nothing below that.
Okay. All right. I see that line.
Okay.
546. Thank you.
Yes. So I'll go back. General fund, where we have a use of balance of 546,000. We'll talk about that a little bit more later.
Okay.
Special revenues are 6 million.
Okay.
6.2 million, of which the road department is almost $1.1 million of that. Capital projects, we're using fund balance in the amount of $1,460,000.
Okay.
Okay. Internal service funds are using a little bit, 124,000, and proprietary funds, which are basically our enterprise funds. We have a use of fund balance of $1,833,000.
Okay.
Of that, the delinquent tax revolving fund is $2,153,000, and we will talk about that a little bit later. Okay, that gets us to the $10,171,000 for the year.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
So if we, okay.
Thank you. That was
Let me
helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. If you go to the next page, this page gives you, or this slide gives you kind of a trend over time of our revenues. So revenues for primary government, and I'm going to exclude indirect costs and admin fees because that's kind of an inter-fund revenue and expense, okay? So I'm just going to kind of eliminate that in my discussion here. Overall, revenues are at $139,770,000, which is an increase of 4.3 mil, or 2.7%. You can kind of see that on the trend chart here. If we go to the next page, you will see, thank you. You will see, I broke out road department because that affects the overall trend over time. So the orange area that you're seeing here is the addition of the road department. So you can see that primary government, excluding the road department, is budgeted at $112,871,000. Okay?
Yep.
Now, it's worth noting the primary government, if I go and average the growth over the last 5 years, average growth is about 2.23%. So it's not very, very much. Okay? Okay. So, any questions there? Okay? Moving on. Property taxes, intergovernmental revenue, and other revenue make up a majority share of the revenue, which is about 88%. You can see that on the pie chart. The blue area, the gray, the kind of an orangish yellow, and the darker, I want to call it dark burnt brown or something like that, I don't know. But you can see that there. Those make up 88% of the total. So we're going to talk about those for just a second, okay?
Okay.
Okay, move to the next slide, please. This right here gives you the numeric values compared to 2019 and between 2019 and 2020 adopted. The last column over is the increase versus the 2020 adopted.
Okay.
So there's your 4.3 million in total increase. And if you go back up just a little ways, you're going to see that intergovernmental revenue, which is revenue from state, federal, and local sources, is increasing 5.2 million. Okay? In your budget book, you can also see, I've listed here the different areas that you can read more about the revenues themselves. Okay? Okay, next slide, please. Taxes, tax growth. This gives you a trend chart of what's been going on with taxes over time. The state equalized values are increasing by 243 million, almost $244 million, or 2.5%. The taxable values increased to $2.253 billion, which is an increase of 2.8%. We are figuring the millage rates will remain flat versus the prior year. It's worth noting on that page that again, I'll do this average over time. Average over time, the taxable values have changed by about 2.2% over the last 5 years per year. So, okay. This is the language from the resolution with regard to the current tax revenues. Nothing's really changed here in that the millage rates remain the same as they were in the last year. That will be on the resolution that's coming before you for approval next week. So your general millage is 4.7723. Parks is the same, 0.1 mil. Emergency 911 is 0.45. Law enforcement is 0.35, and senior centers are 0.30. Okay? Next page. And I've tried to, just as a note, in the upper right-hand corner, I've tried to list where this information is coming from. So this slide is coming from page 10 of your budget book. Just want you to know that. Okay. Tax revenues are budgeted at $51.454 million, or 36.8% of primary government revenue. That's an increase of $740,000. So the last column over gives you that increase versus 2020. You're going to see that the first one down is the general fund, which is $557,000. Okay? Go down to the little box score down at the lower right-hand corner. Current taxes, including PILT and TIFA, are $47,885,000. Delinquent taxes are right around 3.6 mil, getting you to the 2,153,000. I'm sorry, 51,453,000. Wow, can't read. So that gives you kind of an idea of how that revenue is being derived.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, intergovernmental revenue, we're giving you a breakdown here as well. As I mentioned, intergovernmental revenue is going up $5,169,000. You go right to that state grants and funding reimbursement, that's $2,632,000 increase, and local contributions are going up slightly over $1 million. It's worth noting that the county road fund intergovernmental revenue is the majority of that. It's $3,577,000. Okay? And state revenue sharing remains flat versus the prior year per their guidance. Yep. Okay. Other revenues, real quick, are $19,032,000. That's 13.6%. I've listed down below here some items to make you aware of. There is a reclassification of revenue, and even which is about 688,000 of the 1,278,000 that you see there, that it's decreasing from the prior year. So I wanted to make you aware of that. Okay. Next. Expenditures. Again, comments are excluding indirect costs and admin fees. You're going to see there that it's budgeted at 149.941 million. It's an increase of 4.2 mil or 2.9%. We did the same thing with the slide. If you go to the next slide, please. We did the same thing to show historic road department, because over time that distorts that curve a little bit. So there you can see the road department is in gray. The general fund contingency is in the orange, and the blue would be your primary government, excluding those. Keep in mind, I did the same basic thing here and looked at that primary government excluding roads. Over the 5 years, it's gone up 2.29% a year. Okay. Next. This is a breakdown of the 2021 expenses. You're going to see salaries and wages in the blue. That's a big piece of it. Benefit costs, road construction services are in the gray, and internal service benefit payments are also a large part, which is in that burnt orange. Or that, oh, there you go, right there. Those are a big piece of it, and capital outlay, I highlight that because basically of that $10 million, that reduction in fund balance, $6 million, a little over $6 million is being spent on capital.
Hey, Doug.
Yes, sir.
Can I jump in there real quick?
Mm-hmm.
So that the commissioners understand, this is going to be a lean year as it compares to the last couple of years as far as total construction, but that's not to say that we're not getting things done. As you look at the upcoming fiscal year, give or take about $17 million being spent through the road department. That'll include $7 million in federal aid projects. 2 bridges are going to be rehabbed. Napier Avenue will see a $1.5 million upgrade. Walton Road Bridge will see a $1 million upgrade. 2 major reconstruction projects. Red Arrow at Union Pier for $1.5 million. Red Arrow at Harbor at $1.8 million. 2 heavy rehabs. Portage Road, Washington Ave. 100 miles of seal coat work, 25 miles of scratch and seal coat, and then 1.7 million in new equipment will be added into that road department. I just wanted to make sure that the group was aware that we are still planning some pretty heavy projects.
Good.
Okay. Any questions there? Okay, we'll keep on going. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, this gives you, again, a numeric view of the expenditures compared to 2019 and 2020. You see there the expenditures go up $4.2 million, excluding indirect costs and admin fees. It's led by personnel costs of $3.4 million, road construction services and materials of $3.96 million, internal service fund benefits, net of the drug reimbursement reclassification of $726,000, and it's worth it again noting that capital outlay, even though we show a total number of $6.3 million, is down $1.8 million from the prior year. That should be the completion of the jail project, unless who knows what happened.
Good boy.
One assumes that. Yes. Okay. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. This gives you a view of personnel expenses, and we segregated road from non-road of the salaries and wages and the benefit costs. So you're seeing personnel expenditures budgeted of $75.518 million, or 40.4% of the 2021 budget. Okay, next one. This gives you a look, and this particular item. This chart is not shown in the book, but the data is. This gives you a look at over the last few years what the budgeted headcount has been. Okay, from 2020 to the 2021 budget, full-time equivalents are up 14.4 individuals. It's worth noting that the health department is 11.8 of that, and the indigent defense is another 7. There's a lot more detail that's shown on page 124 through 127 of your budget book. So it has trended up over time. A lot of the health department increase is related to the COVID tracking that's going on.
Yep.
Okay.
Questions?
Yes.
Question, please. Commissioner Scott, go back to that last slide, please. Okay, where you have 11.8 FTE health department, 9 of those 11 are under, if I'm correct, are under the federal government grant. So if that grant goes away correctly, then 9 of those FTE employees go away also, but we have to figure it because the grant is for this year, correct?
Their grant runs, it appears as though will run into next year.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Scott, just to follow up on that question, to remind the group, yes. The answer to your question is yes. If the grant funding goes away, then yeah, those positions are eliminated, and the authorizing resolution made clear that these positions are funded but it's contingent upon the state of Michigan providing the funding. It's a similar language that was taken from the authorizing resolution for the Public Defender's Office.
The reason I asked that, Brian, was that I know that and the board members know that, but there may be people on the YouTube channel that don't understand about that, and they see the huge increase in the health department. I just wanted to make the statement on that so that it's for their benefit.
Okay. Okay. All right, next slide. Personnel expenses are budgeted again to increase $3.4 million, 4.7%. If you go down to the bottom or middle where it says total under the salaries and wages, you're going to see $47,164,000, an increased budget of $1,735,000 or 3.8%. The benefits increase $1.6 million, and within that you're going to see the health insurance is $679,000. OPEB is increasing $835,000, and I'm sorry, one more time. Pensions increasing $835,000, and OPEB's increasing $192,000. Okay, if you could go to the next one, please. This gives you a look of pension funding and where it has been up through 2019. That's the most recent information we have. You can see that we have an accrued liability of 266, almost 267 million, and we're 67.8% funded. And then if you flip to the next slide, you're going to see very similar to that within the OPEB fund. So this gives you a shot of OPEB. It's 45.8% funded, okay, with an $85 million accrued liability. Okay, general fund, real quickly, general fund's budgeted at $62.569 million in sources of funds. Uses of fund is $67.115 million, and a use of fund balance of $546,000. Also, we took a quick look. That keeps us within, based upon estimates, it keeps us within the 20 to 40% range, and it's right now estimated to come out at 39.5% at the end of 2021. Okay.
So members of the board, I just want to highlight what Doug just told you. We are drawing down fund balance, but in so doing, the fund balance is still hovering near 40%. At 39.5%, that's an incredibly strong fund balance. We are drawing this down, in an effort to balance the budget, but we're still at a level that is very, very strong.
Okay.
Hey, may I
To
ask?
talk about, yes.
May I ask a question? Mamie Yarbrough, where in the general fund or where does it show the money we get from the casinos? What is that? When I look at
that would-
revenues, where is that?
That is in the state revenue sharing line.
So is it on this page?
Oh, from the casinos? I'm so sorry. My apology. From the casinos, it would be in your tax, property tax line. And
Okay.
Yep.
The first column, I mean, the first word, property taxes?
Yep.
Okay, because that's in lieu, are they doing that percentage or whatever in lieu of taxes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And, yep, and the next page talks a little bit about revenues, and you're going to see where we've estimated a decline in the Four Winds tilt of 155,000.
Okay.
Okay, that would be the first bullet point underneath revenues. So we see a small decrease in revenues of about 114,000. Taxes are overall up, but the rest of the items come to offset, basically. I've given you some bullets in here so that you understood what was driving some of the different lines. Expenditures are decreasing $17,000 from the previous budget. Okay, personnel costs are increasing $435,000. We do want to highlight the fact that there was an estimated vacation payout for retiring individuals in 2020 of $732,000. So that kind of hides that a little bit. 2021 does not have anything built in for that purpose. And then contingency is decreased by $200,000. It's in at 1.3 million right now, and that's the amount we are also looking for a transfer from the the Delinquent Tax Revolving Fund for $1.3 million to support the budget. Okay. Transfers decreased $450,000, and that's because within that, transfers in are from the Delinquent Tax Revolving Fund are decreasing $1,385,000. So we are making efforts to control costs within the fund as much as possible. And
let me jump in there.
Please.
Members of the board, we're going to limit how much we discuss the Delinquent Tax Fund. The board is aware that there's ongoing litigation tied to the state Supreme Court ruling circling back to Oakland County and the use of their Delinquent Tax Fund. Okay. We anticipate that as we get into the upcoming fiscal year budget, that we might see clarity on the state's position as it relates to the Delinquent Tax Fund. Out of an abundance of caution, what we've tried to do in building this budget is be less reliant on the Delinquent Tax Fund, knowing that there is some uncertainty as it relates to the status of the fund. Worst case scenario, I don't think the hit to the Delinquent Tax Fund will be all that bad, but we're just being very conservative. Again, because of ongoing litigation tied back to that fund, there's limits on how much detail I can offer as part of a public meeting. But I just wanted the group to be aware that we are keenly aware of the Oakland County decision, and we're trying to build a budget that shields the county operations from any fallout tied to that decision.
Doug, before you continue, Annette, can you put a feeler out for public comments so that as we're finishing up the presentation, we can let people know that we would entertain public comments once Doug is finished?
Actually, I did that at the beginning of the presentation. I can't go back there now because we're sharing the screen.
Okay.
But I did put out a thing and say that at the end of the presentation, we would take comments.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so this just gives you some bullet points you can refer back to with regard to the general fund. Next slide. Okay, in an effort to close the gap, so to speak, collaborative efforts did occur, working with different departments on trying to bring the general fund in as close as possible the least impact, I guess, to it. And so this is a list of personnel or non-personnel expenses that we went through the process of having conversations with folks to address. Okay, next slide. Delinquent tax revolving fund, we all want to know where that's at. At the end of 2020, the net position is estimated to be just right around $27 million. Of that, $9,790,000 is available to be used for other things if necessary. General fund draw is out of that fund, however, is budgeted at $1.3 million. Health insurance would be $1 million. We're asking for that to assist there, and that capital project draw would be $1,557,000. Okay. All right. The next couple pages give you a list of different items to take note of within the budget. Again, the road department fund is on page 37 of the budget publication, and it shows the use of fund balance of $4 million and an estimated ending fund balance of $5,710,000. Okay, and we kind of walk through each one of those just very quickly, and I'm not going to touch on it unless you folks want to touch on any of it. I'm not going to, in the interest of time, I'm not going to touch on it right now. Okay? Next one. And then this would give you some additional information as well on those. Note that I've got a bullet point within the child care fund that the state has done some changes. I told you about that last year at this time on the State Pays First program. So we are in the process of restructuring our fund structure to address it. And we also, as mentioned, we're asking for an appropriation from the Delinquent Tax Revolving of $1 million for the health insurance fund. We estimate right now at the end of 2021, there will be a $190,000 fund balance, even with that. Okay, in summary, this gives you what we're asking for. Primary government proposed budget is source of funds, revenues of $139.8 million, transfers of $25.6, that was going between the sources and uses, and then a use of fund balance of $10,892,000. On the uses side, expenditures of $149.941 million, transfers again of $25.6, and then uses of surplus funds of $721,000. When you take that uses of surplus funds or net position and combine it with the surplus, you end up with a net change in fund balance or net position of $10,171,000 that we propose to you. Okay? A copy of the budget presentation along with the budget document is available on the website under the budget reports link. With that.
So, members of the board, Mr. Chair, today is simply the public hearing. It's an opportunity for the board to receive the documents. Over the coming days, if the board has questions, if you direct any question to me, I'll make sure to work with staff to get responses put together. I would also say that my plan is if I get a question from an individual board member, my response will be promptly sent, but then I'll share that response with the full board, just assuming if one is asking, more than likely several have the same question. Mr. Chairman, I'll happily answer any questions.
Thank you. Before we check to see if we have public comments, does anyone on the board have any questions or comments?
This is Commissioner Harrison. Now that we're nearly through the election season, there's some discussion of some type of infrastructure bills coming out of Congress and out of Washington. Do you see any of those directly affecting some of our assumptions in the budget?
So Berrien County has been pretty conservative about the use of general obligation debt to fund infrastructure projects. And going with the cash flow approach has been really successful for Berrien. I think that if movement comes out of either the state or federal level, pushing infrastructure bills, pushing infrastructure grants and loan packages, that's something that we really should take a look at. If we have an opportunity to knock out some major construction with essentially low to zero interest loans, it would probably make sense. The only caveat to that is really just tied to the labor market. If the labor market is up in the air as it relates to just a glut of projects, as it relates to limited worker availability, or as it relates to the potential requirement of Davis-Bacon wages, that would be the biggest caveats that I can see. Sir, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Chairperson Elliott,
Yes, ma'am.
Mimi Yarborough, Benton Harbor. I just want to say thank you. Thank you to our administrator, Dissette. He'd only been here 2 days. Okay, I exaggerate. He had just come, and he had a wonderful system set up. I thank Doug James and Ben Reynolds. And Annette, I thank you for everything. But this makes so much sense. And that's what I have your budget. I said budget. Because we had just not too long ago, had those meetings where we met 3 days. And I thank all the staff that came to us. This made sense. I could see it and I understood. So thank you all for all you've done with it.
Mr. Chair, just to follow up to that statement. So we did a bit of a coin toss. Annette took several books out. Shelley from upstairs also took some books out. And it was a real good example of how much smarter these ladies are than I am, because I volunteered to to go from Ezra's house to Jim's house to Michael's house, not really doing the math on how many miles I would be traveling to make that triangle from St. Joe. So I thank the team here for helping with the delivery of the packets, and I was thoroughly amused at spending a couple of hours in the car yesterday.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else before we check the World Wide Web?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Scott. Once again, I have to, Brian, you came in late basically, but not late, early enough to get a grasp, and I appreciate your due diligence and working hard. But I do have to give a lot of kudos to our two financial people sitting there at the desk with a lot of papers in front of them. Thank you for bringing our new administrator up to speed on how things are running in Berrien County. Thank you.
Welcome. Well done.
Yeah.
And Brian, you have experienced baptism by fire. Any public comments?
It does not appear as though there are any comments regarding the budget. So
Right.
I have noted on here that there will be another chance for public comments about the resolutions, and there'll also be another chance for comments at the very end of the meeting again. So if we miss something, we'll probably pick it up.
Very good. With that, then, is there a motion to conclude the public hearing and resume our regular board meeting?
Commissioner Scott, so moved.
Moved by Scott. Is there support?
Commissioner Harrison, support.
Supported by Harrison. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Freeling.
Yes.
There we go.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hugel.
Yes.
Hinkleman.
Yes.
Majeri.
Yes.
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Boral,
Affirmative.
Yarborough,
Yes.
Chickering,
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes,
12 yeas, motion carries.
thank you.
Do you want me to stick around then till after the meeting or no?
I think we're good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Matt. The next item on the agenda says United Way. Annette.
Yeah, so I can't believe it's been a year. Time flies. So last year we were able to come before the Board of Commissioners and do a nice little presentation about United Way and some of the programs that they offer. We had some visitors that from different areas of the company, the prosecutor from the county, the prosecutor's office, Judge Howard was here, the health department. So I don't think there's many of you that don't know about the benefits of United Way, but we shared on a few of the favorite programs there. We're going to go ahead and kick that off again this week. I will be sending out some email blasts to our employees, and we'll touch base with every employee that actually donated last year, thanking them for their donation and asking them if they would like to repeat that again this year. This year. Last year was the first time we did a pledge. They were actually, employees were actually able to just go right on the United Way website and do it through that, and that was very well received and may have been part of the reason why we improved our donations. But I just wanted to touch base with the board to let everybody know that we were headed back into our United Way campaign for 2021.
Great, thanks, Annette.
Yep.
Committee reports. Bill, you have anything for PHS?
Yes, thank you, Mac. We met on Zoom on Tuesday, I believe it was, Brian. We discussed and forwarded to the full board in form of resolution, which are on the consent calendar today. One issue was a request from Southwest Michigan Planning for some support from our GIS department. And we had a full discussion with John Engelhoff about that. And Dave and I felt it was appropriate to cooperate with them. So there is a resolution probably coming next week, I think, Brian, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. The Board of Health asked for approval to invest in technology that will help them manage remotely their client appointments, something that maybe many of us have experienced where you got to sit in your car, and we approved that and moved that forward. Most particularly this time, Brian Bailey let us know that the grant for the property on the Paw Paw River, the 63 acres, has been approved and is apparently to the stage where it's a mere formality. So we have an $80,000 grant that we are approving via resolution. Closing on the piece of property may well occur tomorrow. We will be taking about $30,000 from the Parks Millage Fund. This money has already been allocated, which will complete the county's commitment to this project. So we should hopefully, by close of business tomorrow, own 63 more acres on the Paw Paw River. A critical discussion, and this is something the board will have to maintain diligence on going forward, is that it's one thing to use the state funds to acquire the property. We know the property needs to be developed. And Brian Bailey assured us that they are going after grant money to develop this piece of property rather than using other sources of revenue. That in fact, other than a planning phase, we're not going to develop this property significantly until we get grant money for it. So we're not compromising other aspects of our parks to develop the new property. And PHSC will meet again on Zoom Tuesday at 1 o'clock to review the situation with the emergency preparedness work that's going on for the Silver Beach County Park. And Dave and Terry, anything you guys would like to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. You did a good job, but I just, the voters in District 5 have spoken, and it looks like it's going to take 2 to replace you, Bill.
That's a good point.
That is.
I was thinking just half of the other. Okay. Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see if Mac has to flip a coin.
I think we'll defer to Sharon on that.
All right. So that was PHSC for this week.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Any questions for Personnel and Human Services Committee? All right, Amy, Finance?
Yes, thank you. Our finance committee met this morning, and all of our members were there, and we had presentations from a number of departments. And the first one was Caitlin Samsel. She's the director of 911. We had earlier in the year, August or September, approved work being done on the system, the megahertz 4.9. And when they got ready to do it, they found out that that they could not get it done. They've frozen the parts, and it's not so much that they don't make it anymore, but they're trying to go commercial. And so it was truly just for government agencies and communities. And so they're not doing any new ones, and it caused them to have to go out looking for another system. And this is in the Bertrand Crossing area. It's from a Bertrand Crossing water tank and a Sumnerville Tower site. It's a VHF connection. And I think our commissioners from Niles probably are familiar with this and know about it. And what we had agreed to back in August was the 4.9 system was $31,125. This new system is $44,445. And the director came to us because they want the approval from the board to be able to go to that higher amount. And what she will do, and she has a committee and all that they've been discussing with, but they will now go and meet with the users and the different communities, the Bertrand Crossing, the fire departments, because this is communication between the fire department, police department, and all. And they're real pleased with the system. It's different from anything that we have, but it will work with all our other 911s and all. And it's a possibility that should later on they decide to change it, they could sell this 11 gigahertz system to some other community. And so they're going to have technical meetings because they've got to be licensed through FCC and all. And the first step was to see if we as a commission would accept this increase in dollars. It's about $13,000 something dollars. And we as a finance committee wanted to bring it to you all and hope that you will approve it so that they can be about ordering the parts. With the COVID and with all things are, being slowed down, we'd like to get that straightened out. So that was that report. Then the next report we had was with Chris Swihart about the server. And we had chosen a company, Logicalis. And so they discussed greatly the pricing, and it was, they got the price down to $391,995.76. And that would include a lot of things. And what we did, Chris Swihart, our director of IT, and Kip Coolidge came to the finance committee, and we asked him to come to you all, to the board. And the question was asked by Commissioner Hinkleman. He read through the contract, and he wanted to know if the IT department was satisfied with the service agreement and the maintenance agreement, because that's what's so important as the years go by. And we asked Director Chris Swihart if he would tell us what his answer was to that.
Yes, thank you. This project was in response to an RFP that we put out, and we received several bids and went through the process, narrowed down the vendors, and got the approval to move forward to contract negotiations. So we got the contract where we wanted. It was reviewed by a corporate counsel, and that's why we're here today to talk about this. This is basically a complete upgrade to our data center. This is replacing the county's aging network storage array where all our data resides, plus the internal server infrastructure that runs all our virtual and our physical VM or servers that are going to be housed in this particular system. So it's a very crucial system. We've been running on a 10-year-old SAN that next year is going to be out of support. And given what this does for the county, I mean, all the business that we do electronically with our computer systems, our servers, applications, resides on this piece of hardware, and we need to get it replaced. This device that we've selected, this company we've selected, you know, we did a lot of research. We contacted the references. I spoke to many other people that were using this particular product, including the state legislative branch for the state of Michigan, who uses this nimble storage array and the HP servers. And I feel we've gone through all those steps and made sure that this is a good product, a reliable product. Everybody had high things to say, not only about the nimble storage array that we're looking at, but Logicalis that provides the service that we're bringing in to help us implement. So this is a complete turnkey solution. It includes all the licensing and hardware. This will allow us not only to run our existing infrastructure, but grow as well. So as we add servers, add applications, we can turn up additional servers without having to go out and buy additional hardware each and every time. So we got all the licensing that we need included with this project that we feel the number very strongly is final. So, I mean, that was something we were very adamant about. We worked for 2 months with Logicalis getting that contract ironed out, and then another several weeks working with Judge DeWayne, making sure that it met the county's requirements and everything we were looking for. So we feel very strongly that this is a good product. We have 24/7 support that's going to be provided by Logicalis, HP, Nimble, and if there's an issue on it, we can get somebody here and we can get the parts we need if so be it. You know, part of that also includes growth, so it has built-in capacity. It's going to provide us with additional features and security, redundancy that are going to be a great benefit to the county, faster performance, and take us kind of our data center to that next step in technology. So if you have any questions, you know, feel free to ask me. Hopefully I've covered everything.
But that's what we want you all to have a chance to ask questions, anything you want to know, because this is something we have been working on for years, and there is a bet going on. But please, if you have questions, ask Director Swihart.
Any questions on that or anything else for finance? All right, we will close committee reports and move to public comments regarding resolutions. While we're waiting for public comments, if any, I would note that there are no requests to pull any resolutions from the consent calendar. Now, if somebody has that wish, we should talk about that right now. Otherwise, we will vote on the consent calendar as submitted after we find out if there are any public comments.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Freeling.
Yes.
I wish to just note, I know there was an email that I sent to the clerk and also to Annette that I wish to abstain from resolution B 2011-098. which is our requisition resolution for requisition item number 46257 for Rev Excavating in the amount of $9,500. As you know, I updated my conflict of interest statement. And again, due to the history of this particular contractor and just wanting to protect the county and the work that we do, I wish to abstain from it.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone while we're awaiting public comments? Annette?
We do not have any public comments regarding the resolutions today.
There are no public comments. We'll move forward with the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar as submitted?
I'll make that motion, Michael Majerick.
Moved by Majerick. Is there support?
This is Commissioner Harrison. I'll support the motion.
Supported by Harrison. Any discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Harrison,
Yes.
Hugo,
Yes.
Hinkleman,
Yes.
Majerick,
Yes.
Meeks,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Borat,
Yes.
Yarborough,
Yes.
Chickering,
Bill?
Chickering,
Oh, yes, couldn't hear.
Curran,
Yes.
Freeland,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes.
12 yeas, motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on with the agenda, we are now at the point, since there aren't any added resolutions, we're at the point to receive commissioner reports if anyone has anything they would like to talk about.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Scott. I may defer on some of these things to Commissioner Freeling and Commissioner Curran. Last Thursday, we had a broadband brain trust meeting, and I'd like to see that name changed to Broadband Task Force. But anyway, that's beside the point. And we had that with Merit, who we went into a contract with to do the survey. And what was discussed basically is on what, when, and how the survey comes out. And also, I have to note this, and I think everybody, all the commissioners on the other two commissioners will agree with me. John Eaglehoff has done a fantastic job of moving us along on the broadband and getting us to where we need to go. I wanted to make that a point. On the other point that I wanted to make is some of the commissioners here were not in a contested election where I was. And when I was talking to people after they voted and before they voted, this is the gist of what I was hearing. That I was told by members of both parties who voted for me that my broadband work is huge to the voters and the needs of the public, and they voted so I could continue, and are pleased with the county board on the county board's quest to finally solve this issue. Now, as most of you understand, for years and years and years, I've been hearing the biggest problem in the county was the roads. I believe that's changed, at least in my district it is. Broadband has surpassed that. So, but it was nothing but good comments from the voting public on how the Board of County Commissioners has taken on broadband to make that better for all the residents of Berrien County. And I just wanted to let everybody know what I was told in my district. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other commissioner reports? Hearing none, is there anything additional from the administrator?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just a few things to run the group through. Yesterday afternoon, late in the day, we had a minor excavating issue tied to the jail project. It interrupted natural gas. It also interrupted Comcast service. So I wanted to just point out, we had some folks at our IS department that were working pretty actively at the end of the day and into the evening to get it repaired. But then you all know how hard Annette works for the county, for the board, and for the staff. Annette worked late into the evening at our house, scrambling, trying to get today's packet pushed out to all of you. So just a big shout out to Annette and personal thank you from me to her for good work. Just continuing down the list, I mentioned the jail. Earlier this week, the sheriff who's sitting next to me was kind enough to give me a tour of the jail. I've been through it before, but that was in July. I was happy to see progress being made on that construction effort, but I was also noted that we do have some lingering details that just have to be addressed before we can close out that project. So I've been working with the sheriff, and I'm making the board aware that we won't close out that project until I'm satisfied, till the sheriff is satisfied, and the project is truly complete. At 12:30 today, I'll be meeting with the administration committee, and one of the items that they'll be updated on is Silver Beach. We do have bids in hand now for the erosion control work. For the board, just so you understand, Silver Beach is kind of a gray area. It falls under Parks. Parks falls under PHSC. It also is a significant improvement to a county facility, so I'm taking it to PHSC, to admin. Then I'll be circling back around to the Finance Committee next week for the bid approval, and then bringing it back to the Board of Commissioners potentially as early as next Thursday. And then just one last note, on Tuesday, one of the items that was not controversial that was approved was Proposal 1. Commissioner Chickering mentioned that with the Water Belit property acquisition that will be reliant on the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund to seek grant funding to improve that site. Now, the thing I just wanted the board to be aware of, with the passage of Prop 1, that kind of makes the Natural Resources Trust Fund program a lot more exciting and interesting for Berrien County. Prior to Prop 1, there was very severe restraints or constraints on how the MDNR could use their trust fund dollars. With the passage of Prop 1, that shifts the availability of dollars. It offers more flexibility to the MDNR and how they push out their grant awards, and also the maximum amount of dollars that are going to grant recipients. So typically you would never see a grant above $300,000 for capital improvement. With the passage of Prop 1, that $300,000 cap should be going away. And I'll be working with the Parks Department as we look at that April 1 deadline for MDNR grant applications. It could be kind of an exciting year to see what the MDNR is doing now that Prop 1 has been approved by the voters. Mr. Chair, those are my comments.
Thank you. We'll now turn to general public comments. Find out if there are any.
I don't see any. I think you're good. times.
All right, no public comments today. Does anyone have other business to discuss? Hearing none, then I'm not aware of any announcements or reminders other than we are closed, I believe, on Wednesday for Veterans Day. And then we will reconvene here 10:30 in the morning next Thursday. With that, yes, ma'am, Amy?
Yes, we do have a finance committee meeting at 9 a.m. next Thursday.
Okay, very good. And admin's 12:30 today, as I understand? Yep.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Mac?
Yes, sir.
Brian, or you are, with the Veterans Day, is that going to change our Wednesday COVID?
Yep. I will talk with Mac and the sheriff just as we wrap about either pushing that to Monday or Tuesday.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, hang on a second.
I think we have a late arrival on public comment.
I had someone asking questions during the, health department presentation, but we don't do them then at that time. So
Sure.
I think she meant them for now, so I'm trying to get her municipality from her.
Stand by.
Preference on Monday, Tuesday for
Next week.
for the COVID.
All right, Tuesday.
Same time.
Yeah, that's okay with everyone.
I don't have her municipality. Do you want me to just go forward? She's not given that to me yet. I mean,
we're holding queue now for over 5 minutes.
she asked him, or like I said, in an earlier part of the thing, but
You know what the question was?
the question is regarding COVID testing.
Maybe we can respond.
Have her contact our office and we can take it down and then we can try to get her an answer.
Okay, that would be fine. I don't want to leave it lingering. Could be, someone may want to know where to get tested or what the process entails. So if this individual could send it through, then we'll try to get a response as soon as we can. All right, then with that, we're tentatively looking at doing the COVID briefing instead of Wednesday at 11, next Tuesday at 11, if that's okay for the group. And then I'm guessing Nikki Britton signed off already, but we can get word to her as well. Anybody have anything else? All right, we're adjourned to next Thursday at 10:30.
Thank you.
I'm gonna leave this live for a second just so I can go back and get all of her comments, so I'm gonna leave it on.
Sheriff, do you want me to
Just so
contact
you know.
Rocky about rescheduling that COVID call?
Oh, I'll get hold of you.
Okay, we'll just do it on Tuesday at 11 instead of Wednesday.
Yeah, no problem.
Perfect. Before you take off, Annette, am I safe muting them?
You can, yes.
Okay.